On a train, in a bus, in a car, on the way to your job. All alone with your kids, with your wife, or with your dog. You can listen anywhere, you can listen everywhere, to the Philip Maloney podcast.
Philip, if you don't mind, I'd like to say a prayer for all those parents listening, all those moms and dads out there that are fighting really hard to see their children and working towards resolve for parental alienation worldwide. Lord, please hear our prayers. Grant those parents strength and wisdom, courage, perseverance to do the right thing, always for the right reasons. Lord, hear our prayers. Amen.
Good.
Amen. Welcome to the Philip Maloney podcast, the latest installment of the Philip Maloney podcast, where I am joined by George and Derick from TX03. We'll hear a lot more from them in a moment. And also Claudia, who has been around telling her story at quite an exceptional level, but I'm very humbled that all three of these fine people have joined me today on the Philip Maloney podcast to discuss a matter which is kind of USA centric, but it has a global effect in its ramifications as well. So all will be revealed, and I welcome you guest and Derick. Thank you so much for that prayer. That was a really lovely thing to start off the show with. So we have George and Derick, but first of all, I'd like to just introduce you all to Claudia again and have a bit of a conversation with her around her experience, which will give us some more details into some of the fine work that's been going on behind the scenes. So, hi, Claudia.
Hi there. Hi, Philip. Hi, Derick. Hi, George. Well, first of all, I became familiar with Texas Penal Code 25.03 when I first met George at a function with Senator Menendez. We attended the function. Again, oftentimes parents are facing civil litigation, and when the child is withheld or retained, you're referred back to civil court. What we learned is that there is a criminal remedy, which is a state jail felony of interference with child custody. And once that I became aware of it, because it is decades old, I think it's almost 40 years old, I was questioning why was I not told about this before, and always referred back to civil litigation when this is in fact a criminal act. So I became familiar with George and in 2018, and through the past years, we've just been advocating, getting parents involved to advocate for themselves, but to become familiar with the law and how to implement the law, and that way we know how to actually fight for remedy, so that we can have that relationship with our children and get access to our children.
Yeah, so sort of scrolling back through your story, I take it you found, I mean, for the viewers here in the UK, I mean, of course, this is the internet, so there's viewers everywhere, discussing these similar type topics. But for yourself, at some point, you would have found yourself having to cross state lines within the United States. Now, for those people who don't know, the United States is obviously 52 states. Yes, 52 states. Yep.
50 with a couple territories.
Okay, all right, yes. But each of those have their own sort of quirks and their own laws and their own ways of governing themselves to a certain degree at the state level. And then you've got the federal, which is like the sort of the law that the whole country has to abide by de facto. So when it comes to having the contact with your child after a separation or a divorce, very often a known tactic is to move from one state to another state in order to frustrate that sort of contact. So that just puts a little bit of context behind some of the things that you have been suffering with, or or being frustrated with. So what sort of problems did you find yourself facing before you found out about this information about these bills?
Okay, I apologize for that.
No problem.
Some of the problems that I was facing was that the child was continuously retained, and that when I spoke up to, because the order wasn't being complied, I was constantly being referred back to civil litigation, but I already had that order that said I had access to my child, that visitation was already determined, that was already agreed upon. So then why wasn't this person complying? And why, when I reported this, I'm sent back to court? So, you know, there's that frustration, but if this state jail felony exists, then why isn't anyone doing anything about it? Why can't I go and pursue that as a remedy?
And have contact with your child, as you say, court ordered contact with your child.
Yes.
Not just court ordered, but you have to realize that the judicial courts here harp on, oh, we're rendering this order on the best interest of the child.
Yes.
Right. So
That's a
not
very
only
good
is
point.
the court ordered, but this is what the judge said was in the best interest of the child.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when,
So,
you know, when law and that's one of the things that you know, we have an issue with law enforcement, is that law enforcement, you know, law enforcement needs a judicial order for a warrant, right? And for a bunch of things, right? So the same piece of paper that a judge signs a warrant, right, for you to go kick somebody's door in or search their house or whatever, we got the same piece of paper, right? It's signed by a judge. And the piece of paper says any law enforcement may use reasonable efforts into enforcing this order.
Yeah.
And so writing an offense report to document it correctly so it can be used in court, so you can have some sort of relief, is very, very reasonable, right? We understand that here in the United States, you can't really remove a child from the parent unless it's an order for a removal. But, you know, we're not asking for that. All we're asking is for the proper documentation to be written, to be filed, so that in the best interest of the child, the judge has already rendered it in the best interest. So if you don't mitigate or facilitate that interaction between these two parents, it's bad for the child. It's not in their best interest. So the best thing to do is to help facilitate and mitigate the situation between both parents out in the field. And with our group, some of our members have had law enforcement step in and actually start telling these parents, hey, look, you don't turn over the child, you're going to go to jail. We're going to file a felony offense.
And I think that's how we know that we identified a real hot topic and an issue, because we have support from judges, from DAs, from district attorneys. We have support from certain law enforcement agencies that have realized that this has become an issue. So it's not something where it's, you know, the people versus the system. There's people within the system itself that have realized and identified that there's a real issue and that it needs to correcting.
So one of the things that I guess turned me on was that Derick and I went to a what was it? Judge Quesada's. It was a town hall meeting for a juvenile judge here in San Antonio, and they were asking for mentors from the public to come mentor these children that were in juvenile detention centers. They were begging the public, hey, we need mentors to come mentor all these troubled kids that are locked up in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so here we are, and in my case, you know, Derick and I, both males, right? We're fighting to see our children. So the state of Texas has paid research done with grant money that says that children that have come from fatherless homes are 80% more likely to get put or be incarcerated.
Yeah.
Right?
Ironically, they are creating the issue.
Right. So they're creating the issue. So let's go a step further. Not only fathers. The study was based on dads being removed out of the house or fatherless homes, right? But we have Claudia, right, and we have Kimmy, and we have
Tons of ladies within the
a
group.
bunch of women in our groups. We have stepmoms, right? So I'm not just going to fight for men. I know it's more geared towards men, but let's fix the overall problem. We fix the overall problem. I'm going to fix not just my problem, not just Derick's problem, but we're going to fix Claudia's. We're going to fix Kimmy's. We're going to fix all the women's that are in our group. We're going to help stepmoms. So let's take away fatherless homes, and let's say that when two healthy parents are involved in their children's lives, right, the children are going to benefit. Then you won't be asking for mentors from the public to come help these troubled children.
Yeah. It removes all the conflict out of the equation. I mean, you don't have mom and dad in this power struggle with one parent that has the empowerment over the other because of the court orders. If they start off on an equal and level playing field, then you're going to remove a lot of the conflict. The problem is the system, the way it's set up, doesn't want to remove the conflict because of they want to be able to generate revenue and make profit from it. And that's what it is. I mean, 90% of the time you follow the money, you have your answers, and it's taboo to talk about. They try to shut you down. They don't want you to talk about it. Or like, how dare you bring this to light? It's so obvious, you know, you're going to ruin our racket here.
So one of the things is Claudia has been working on is we found contacts within the juvenile detention center here in Bexar County. And we were trying to figure out demographics, not so much names of the children that were there, because we know that, but we wanted the statistics. How many of these children are coming from fatherless homes? How many are coming from motherless homes? How many are not even raised by their mom and dad or wards of the state, or coming from grandma's home, right? Yeah. There's a lot of children that don't have both parents and that are living with grandmother.
Yeah. That's such an important statistic to collect, and we never hear it, even in in the media and things like that. You hear of a tragedy and what have you. I always think it because I live this, and you never hear about the actual background issues within people who commit
So, and that's one thing I'm proud
of. Media.
And that's one thing I'm proud of my team for, is that we've gone over and beyond. And so while legislators or lawmakers, politicians don't think of these issues, like, we're on top of it. We're thinking outside the box. And I always tell our group and our members and our admins and our moderators, I was like, guys, let's stop doing the status quo. Let's stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Let's think outside the box. What can we ask for that nobody has these questions, right? Or nobody has these answers to? Let's bring them from another angle. Let's hit them at a different angle, right? Because they're always used to people coming at them in a certain way. So let's hit them with this. Do y'all know that 75% of these children that are locked up are coming from fatherless homes? Do you know that they have this many is coming from motherless homes, and this many are coming from being with their grandparents? Let's hit them with those statistics, right? Yeah. And that's what's really cool about our team is that we don't have a job description. We kind of just bounce off each other.
We do have fancy titles, but yeah, we got the founder and CEO. We have the communications director, and I believe, Claudia, you're our
child advocate,
parental alienation child advocate.
Yeah. And so we don't have any job titles, but we just kind of bounce off each other, and we're getting things done. I mean, and I can't be any more proud because we just all mesh. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really important ethos to have within any organization. And the one thing that springs out to me there is there's no ego, so as long as you can sort of leave the ego outside the door. I mean, you sort of alluded to it earlier about, when you have the members, you're not looking to have sob stories, etc. You're looking for solutions. And in order to do solutions, you've got to kind of drop your own problems, and you've got to focus on everybody's problems to find the solution that's going to fit within sort of, taking down this issue of enablement.
Right. Absolutely. And Phil, I wanted to ask, where does the UK stand on, if you don't mind, I'm putting you on the spot here, and you may or may not know, but where does the UK stand on the UN Convention Children's Bill of Rights? Is that something that has been adopted and for some time?
Goodness, I wouldn't be able to speak on that, but I'm reasonably familiar. I mean, that's to do with having the rights of a like supporting parents, etc.
It's the children's
Is
rights.
it the 40? I think there's 47 bills within the UN Children's Bill of Rights, something along that line. I spoke to a social worker about this, or a training social worker, and there's not enough mention of it. Is the is the truth to that? But I certainly wouldn't put myself forward as an authority to be able to speak around that. I just don't know
And I don't
enough
want to put
about
you on
it.
the spot, but the reason I was asking is because that's something that we've all looked at, Claudia and Kimmy and George and the rest of the team in the group, is because we are approaching it at a state level, but we have multiple angles that we're looking at the issue. And every administration within the US has denied signing that Children's Bill of Rights from the UN Convention that was set some time ago for whatever reason. I think it had the generic reason was for the reporting aspect of it and having to keep up with it and so forth. But every administration has an excuse on why it hasn't been signed. And so one of the things that we wanted to look at was a Children's Bill of Rights at a federal level that would outline 10 or 20 bullet points what our children are entitled to, and what they should receive. The interesting about that in the states is if we get enough states to follow suit and to adopt that as a foundation to start from, then it could be adopted at a federal level. If enough states agree to it, rather. But that federal template will serve just as that, a structure provided to the states, and then we can build off of that. And some of those things could address the PA issue that we find within all those little sub issues, in the power of struggle of ownership and using children as pawns. We want to take that out of the equation. And the thought process is if we get, federal, the states follow suit for the structure, and then they could adopt and add things that pertain to each state, because our state laws do vary from state to state. We have the federal level that kind of encompasses everything and provides a canopy, but then the states usually do things a little differently from one another, and some of them will jive the same, but and then that adds to the confusion too, because Texas 2503 interference with child custody is for Texas, but there's other states that have very similar laws or like-minded laws in place, and then we have states that don't have anything. So it's real, like they don't address the issue. The 50-50 states address the issue at the civil level with the penalties built into the court order agreement. So a lot of states right now are being real successful with the 50-50 aspect, and more states are adopting it. I mean, we had a bill this session too, HB 803, that died in committee, but it was real promising. And it was, like an amendment kind of deal. It was real, it wasn't talking, it was just starting the conversation at 50-50, and a judge could still deem best interest of the child and decide, the scenario case by case. But there was so much reluctancy, there was so much opposition to like this 50-50 bill, and it just blows your mind. Like, what's the real reason? What's going on here, guys?
Well, I think you raise a really good point in stating the UN Convention, for children, because it sits with what I'm trying to do with my podcast as well, which is make it collaborative, make it so that, you guys in Texas can access, some of the people here in the UK. And as you say those words, it just sort of makes me think of the people who I've done podcasts with, like Sally Ann Barris, like Jan Jameson, and people like David Hudson as well, who are real advocates for sort of collaboration around these issues. And I think the UN, forgive me, what's the actual wording for the bill for the children in the UN?
The UN Convention, Children's Bill of Rights, something along that line.
Yeah, something along those lines. It's like, they should have clean water, they should have education, they should have facilities, and there's a whole list. And one of them is, they should have access to biological parents, etc. Because not only the UN, but UNICEF have done sort of studies to show that when you do not have, access to biological parents, or one or the other, etc., you go down that percentage, cascade of 75% more more likely to commit, you know, like crime or be sexually promiscuous or, be
Drop out
sort
of
of
school.
more, drop out of school, you know, get pregnant, do drugs and all the, you know, all of these things that are suicide as well. Teenage suicide is more prevalent with, you know, children who don't have access to, you know, both biological parents, etc. So, you know, you saying that and questioning what we're doing in the UK, the short answer from what I can see at the moment in my fledgling podcast, you know, uptake is not enough. That's the answer. Not enough is being made of that. And I think there is a lot of legislation out there which should cover every single aspect, but it looks like the legislation is also being shirked by the people who should be actually implementing it, which I think is a real pain point for yourselves as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. The very same people that, you know, George touched on legislative intent. We make these laws, and we have these court orders, but what good are these really expensive court orders if nobody's going to follow them and they can't be enforced? Right. The same thing applies. Yeah.
It's the lost art of reading. People have forgot how to read in today's society, and they would rather just, we've been doing it like this for the last 47 years.
I would like to think it's just the lost art of reading, but I really think it's money driven, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, you know, trust, right? It's the trust. You would trust someone to have your best interest at heart and not necessarily a racket or a cartel of industries that need to see this kind of conflict.
Sure.
But you know,
it's
funny that you say that, but we've educated a lot of people here. We've educated lawyers. I mean, lawyers have called us to ask us what we think, and we're not lawyers. I mean, all we did, all we've done is all we've done is read, you know, legislative intent is how the law is written, and you know,
should be applied.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think Claudia had an anecdote, and I think you might be alluding to it now, where you were frustrated. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, and certainly pick up if I'm right. But you were frustrated with this bill that you had in your hand, which to your eyes said what you were interpreting as it said, and you were getting knockbacks from your interpretation until you took it to the actual person who wrote the bill. Is that the story?
Yeah, that's exactly exactly my story. So when I started September 2017 is when I started my huge journey. But I'd always had problems, but it got significantly worse. So after that, somebody told me, hey, interference with child custody is a state jail felony. You should ask the police officers to write you an offense report and she can go to jail. So I started digging into it. And when I started digging into it, it was confirmed. It was there. It was written. And so I didn't know what to think about it. And so I went on to the legal page for the state of Texas on where they post all the laws.
Texas Penal Code.
Texas Penal, yeah. Well, they have all the family code and the penal code. So I went in there and I looked it up. And then on the bottom of the law, it says every time it was changed, what legislative session, what was the bill, and then it's a hyperlink. So you press it and it'll take you to when it was amended. So I said, I want to go and talk to the guy that touched it last. I want to hear from that guy. So I went down to Austin, I found his name and I called his office. Luckily he was still in office. And I called him, I said, hey, I want to sit down. I want to talk to you about this. And we sat down, and that's where I met my friend now, is Richard Raymond, State Rep Richard Raymond. He's the one who's doing this bill, House Bill 4240. You know, when I talked to him in January or February of 2018, I talked to him for the first time. We became friends, and I brought him a whole bunch of parents that are having this issue. Yeah. And I talked to him, you're a family law attorney. What does this mean? You know, and he explained it. And He said, well, nobody kind of is paying attention. I was like, what can we do to fix this? And so we started having meetings after meetings with others, and he brought the Texas District and County Attorneys Association in. He brought some district attorneys in, and that's how it all started. I went to, it's always, I went to, I don't want to say I went to the horse's mouth, but that's what I did. You know, I went to the guy that touched it last, who was able to not interpret it, but
Provide the definition.
right. But here in Texas, and in the United States federal law, you know, it says there's a whole bunch of case law in Texas and in the United States Supreme Court. It says legislative intent is how the law is written. Well, if you're telling me that, then you're telling me that this is a felony. Like, we're, like, am I on candid camera or what? I mean, what, like, you know, someone trying to pull the wool over my eyes. I know how to read. I got an associate's degree, you know? So y'all can't be pulling the wool over my eyes no more. So I started educating people. You know, then you get lawyers that say, well, you're what do they always tell me? They threaten me with that I'm doing law. No, that I'm
giving legal advice.
That I'm giving legal advice. And no, I'm not giving legal advice. I'm telling people how to read and what it says in black and white.
We've made a lot of friends, but we upset a a lot of people along the way.
Okay, too. So you're just a walking, talking reference book, right? For people who make a web search. You're no different to that, right?
You and your group are giving legal advice, and you're practicing law, and that's illegal. And it's, come on, dude.
No,
is it?
Just tell people where to find it.
It's illegal to break the law.
Yes.
You know, but
you're worried about me telling somebody where to go find it, but you won't help me look for my kid.
Probably worried about
that's it. I wonder why that is. Okay, did you have any practical success after this encounter with, sorry, what was the gentleman's name again?
Richard Raymond, State Representative Richard Raymond.
Richard Raymond. Okay, well, thank him. You know, sounds like a very good piece of work.
With Petra the other day. And then, you know, of course,
was that from a hospital bed?
No. That's our senator.
That's our other.
That's our other friend.
He's the one that authored the other bill. That's our other.
He's our senator here in San Antonio area.
Stand-up guys, amazing individuals. Those are the public officials that actually stand up for we the people and voice our concerns and what a representative should be or what a senator should be.
Listen, when a senator is in a hospital bed because his wife is having surgery and comes onto a podcast to talk about this issue, you know, I doff my cap to him. That's brilliant.
Most definitely. And we've made our team, you know, we like to joke and we like to play, you know, because you definitely have to change your mentality. You know, you're going to be told no, you're going to be told you can't, you're going to be told everything in the book, you're breaking the law, you're giving legal advice. You know, we have been told so many things and we have overcome 99% of them.
No is not an option.
It's easy for people to tell you no than to try to calculate it or work it out or be proactive.
Change the status quo.
So we don't take no for an answer.
We keep an open mind. And we'll learn along the way, but no is not an option. We need solutions.
Right. And so that's been one of the you know, one of the things that our group is, you know, prides themselves on is that these guys told us no, we couldn't have a meeting. Oh, watch this. We're going to get a meeting with them, whether they like it or not.
We're the Karens of South Texas.
So a lot of these political leaders, they like us, you know, and it's not because we're trying to be jerks or, you know, but
it's definitely not because we're polished.
We're just normal citizens, you know, constituents, voting constituents, and we demand accountability, but you know, we'll bring it to you nice several times, and you know, if you don't get the point, then we got to be raw a little bit. And sometimes that's where Derick and I
Assertive.
clash sometimes, because Derick likes to be more passive and
We're,
I'm more aggressive.
we're
He's
yin and yang.
yeah,
We complement each other.
or Bird and Ernie here lately.
It's not all roses over here.
Yeah.
It's definitely a marriage
Yeah.
relationship that takes some work.
We have to figure out, Derick, we need to be a little bit more harsh with them. We have to put our foot down a little harder.
But we have to do it businesslike and professional and well mannered.
And sometimes George doesn't, George isn't well polished.
There's no filter.
And that's why he's the communication. That's the reasons why he's the communications director, because he's more soft spoken than I am. So
yeah, so you're in the background like kicking and screaming, and going, we need to everything's
there's
fine.
been times that I've had to override and things still get done. So yes, Derick's method works. I would say about 90% of the time. But then when I get involved,
the bull in the china shop helps out sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes I'm the bull in the china shop and
starts wrecking things.
Like I said earlier, as long as there's no ego in, as long as it's for the common good and it's for the and it's
kiss and make up.
Yeah,
and it all moves in the right direction. That's always a good thing.
That's the great thing about our group, is that we're able to bounce off each other and just pick each other up and keep going. We're all going through our own individual struggles. Claudia has hers, Derick has his, I got mine, right? So we find time to work our cases and then work together to get our bills passed and then help other parents. So this is a full-time job for us.
It is,
but we're waiting for the reward after this legislative session, because this has been 2.5, 3 years of hard work, gathering statistics, being political. Like we never thought about being politicians
until now.
We're like, I was a fireman by trade. I humped hose. I got dirty, and I don't see myself wearing shiny shoes and a tie. But I've had to put more ties on this year, to go to these meetings.
He cleans up real nice. He does.
The only one with a good looking shirt today too.
I had to dress down today just to make him look good. I mean, he's like, I'm rubbing off on him. Look at that.
Yeah, we needed this meeting, really, didn't we? We should have all sort of colluded into what we were going to wear.
For an intervention, but we were talking about the success of these two bills that have to do with interference with child custody, but I know Claudia and Petra and the entire team have been working really hard on another one that kind of nails PA and parental alienation by defining child abuse. And Claudia, do you want to talk a little bit about HB 2153?
Sure, that's HB 2153. It's authored by Representative Harold Dutton. Unfortunately, we only have a little bit of time left in the legislative session, and this will likely not be heard, but that doesn't mean that's going to stop us, because based on the cooperation that we've received with Senator Menendez, he explained a little bit of how we can work this bill through with the companion legislation for the next session. So that's kind of our idea, is to work on that. And again, like Derick mentioned, Petra helped a lot with supporting and getting a lot of organizations to support. She lined up about 600 people willing to testify if needed for the HB 2153, the child abuse bill. It is the closest language to that we see as parental alienation, the behaviors that a child does not just normally reject the parent without any legitimate reason. And so that was something that we found, but later on, so it was really hard to get the wheels moving. So that's just something that we're going to work on for next legislative session, but that was a really huge bill. And if we did get that, that would have been a huge foundation for these other states to get it pushed. So we'll continue to work on it.
So the senator's getting clever with it, and getting cute around sort of how to slide these things in as well.
And I think that's one of the things you asked earlier in the podcast. What do we plan to do, afterward? And I was just talking to Claudia this morning about it, and I said, we started our group, almost 2.5, 3 years ago on Facebook, and we're so little, but we pack a huge punch, because we get our members to get involved. And so I told Claudia, it's like, we got 2 bills, being this young organization. And if they become law, like our organization, our little grassroots organization has done its job.
Yeah.
You know, has everything we've done in the last, I mean, we couldn't ask for anything better, right? And so what are we going to do, Claudia? And Claudia asked me that, and I told Claudia, I said, you know, I don't think we should stop. We got a good thing going. You know, we got some good parents, and maybe we can do 2153 next year. Maybe we can get enough data, and we can get enough. The legislators like us, the politicians in our area, you know, love our group. So why stop? Let's keep. You know, I mean, we started out for interference with child custody, but it doesn't mean that we should just stick to it.
Oh, there's tons of topics. Shared parenting, parental alienation.
Team 2503 can, you know, we got our objective complete. So let's now go and help either another organization and back them up, or let's start something else. Maybe we can tackle PA. We, to be honest with you, we were kind of behind the ball on 2153. We heard about it a little late. If we would have known about it a little earlier, or
well, this session was unique too. This session, because of all the COVID and restrictions and everything that happened, they heard the emergency bills first in session for the first like 30 to 60 days, I believe. And then they started with everything else that had already been filed back in March. So it kind of put the timeline changed a little bit. And so it put some more scrutiny, and they were trying to cram more and less after the emergency bills were heard. So I think that was kind of unique to this session. It hadn't happened before like that.
So we're dabbling in that. We want to get through these two bills. We want to see them through. We got about another 30 days. I think then I think we're all going to take a rest for a few weeks, and then probably, you know, we have our own cases we got to work on. So I think we're going to take a few weeks, you know, from the group and trying to regroup and give us a little vacation, because we've been going hard
nonstop for the past like 3 years almost. 2.5.
Well, obviously, you know, you have to take care of yourselves in order to help others. You know, I believe that. One of the things that I thought about when I first spoke to Claudia around this around these bills and things like that was the Hague Convention, because if you've ever been a child who has been sort of, you know, flown off to another country, you know, in whether it's in the UK or any of the Hague signatory countries, you're the parent who's been left behind has an absolute right to file for you to come back and for matters to be dealt with domestically. So it seems like there's a real similarity around the Hague Convention, because the United States has been signed up since 1963, as a Hague Convention signatory against international child abduction. So do you guys see the correlation, you know, within that? And do you find it quite ironic that internationally you could be acting, you know, with one in one way, but domestically you could be seeing it as sort of, you know, like a bit of a non-issue, or just that civil matter that needs to just be swept under the carpet? Has that ever been sort of raised before at these hearings?
It's very interesting that you bring that perspective up, because when we started this, yes, it was domestic, it was localized, it was, you know, pertaining to interference with child custody. But the more and more research that our entire team did, we found out tons of statistics and data on child trafficking, which led us to obviously worldwide international issues and problems. So it's funny that you had kind of mentioned that, because we never expected that. And we started, you know, going to these seminars and presentations and, you know, doing the research on the child trafficking aspect of it. And it's a hot topic right now here in the States, with, especially in Texas being so close to the border, that, you know, we hear about child trafficking in the news every day. It's an everyday thing. You know, close the border, open the border, you know, everybody's arguing and fighting about it. And, you know, immigration, and these are all hot topics right now. But child trafficking, it keeps coming up. It's like headlining every single issue, and just, it makes you wonder, why aren't we addressing that? Why aren't we paying more attention to it? Because it seems to be across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why isn't it tight? Why isn't it like airtight to have,
Right.
you know, litigation around children? It's too
Right.
loose. It's weird. It's bizarre.
It is.
So I don't know how y'all's criminal system is set up, but a felony here in the United States or even in Texas is a very, very harsh punishment. You know, it's a state jail felony here in Texas, and depending on which state, not every state has a state jail felony. They're different, a Class D felony, and they call them all different sorts of things. But
Yeah.
this is the lowest of the felonies, which is the lowest of the harsher punishments. You know, you have a misdemeanor, which is like a speeding ticket, right? So
Yeah.
a state jail felony can carry up to 2 years in a state jail. So it's the lowest of the lowest felonies.
There's a hefty fine.
Right, and a hefty fine. So the state, again, let's revisit that number. 91% of non-custodial parents in the state of Texas are men, right? So the state doesn't want to put women in jail on a felony for up to 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the issues that we've had is, she's keeping the kid from you. Yeah, well, why do you want to throw her in jail? Look, I'm not trying to throw her in jail. I'm just trying to follow the judicial court order, right? But there's a reason why it's a felony, and there's a reason why it's got to stay a felony, is because when children then cross state lines, and then when they cross borders, right? You need the federal government. You need the intervention of the United States Marshals or the FBI that have jurisdiction, not only in the United States, but can help.
It gives them the ability to issue a warrant.
Right. Yeah. And so, we've had children taken over to Mexico. We're in Texas, so close to Mexico. You know, a mom or a dad grabs the child, they go over to Mexico. Good luck in seeing your child again. Good luck. You know, and it's the same thing, you know, if we can't get local law enforcement to do something now, you know, if my ex-wife was, you know, from Spain, you know, she'd jump on a flight, take my kids, like the police didn't help me. Good luck on seeing my children. They're totally like gone. Now you have to get congressmen and US senators to go through the Hague Convention, you have to jump through all these extra hoops.
It's years.
Yeah, it's years of fighting. And now you have countries that are getting involved, right? So now these children are being kidnapped by their own parents.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly the definition.
And if you can't fix it on the local law enforcement level, the higher you get is just more red tape. You know, so we don't want to get there. We don't want to get there, but we definitely can.
We don't have a problem going international and you flying us out to the UK, and we'll shake some things up out there if you want, Philip. I mean,
come on down.
We get some dirty down Texans over there from down south. And
listen, I'm coming that way. I'm coming in that direction because one of the
barbecue and some tacos.
Hey, you
that's what I want to talk about.
You get us some fish and chips.
You'll have a sombrero on before you leave, man. You a cowboy hat, put you in some boots.
Oh yeah, I need some boots. I need some
maybe even a horse.
Yeah, we'll get you a horse. You can take a horse back.
I'm in.
I think it's important. And George talked a little bit about organization in the group and having a solid team. Don't try to take too much on by yourself as an individual. Find a well-organized, well-oiled machine that can help you push you through it. Because where he starts to get tired and falter, then I'll pick up. And then Claudia is absolutely relentless. I haven't seen her sleep, so I don't know if she's, you know, even human, or there's some speculation, but she's a pit bull when it comes to topics, man. Before we even pick up the phone, Claudia's calling offices and sending emails. She's like, oh, I already did it. I already knocked it out. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean,
so if we, you know, and I always tell people you need different, as much as we butt heads. I mean, because we really don't butt heads, but when
just difference of opinions.
But I always tell people, you know, you need your little chihuahuas that are small, that have a, and then you need your pit bulls that look big and burly like me, because apparently I scare people when I walk around, and I'm very abrasive in my speech. But then you need you know, your Labradors like Derick that are, you know, or like Lassie or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So you need a well-rounded group to do certain things, you know. Kimmy, she's very pretty. She's like our little poodle, right? She, you know, she gets everything she wants, right? So we
Can
have
you
this.
stop the dog analogies?
Well, I think the dog analogies is what makes us work, you know, because we're all just different, you know.
This is what I have to deal with. This
And
this is what I'm talking about.
but we all bounce off each other, so it's not a
Yeah.
bad idea, you know, for you to find a group that has different perspectives. In
Sure.
other words, don't go and find a group that's just solid on doing this
Oh, yeah.
one way, and this is
Mm.
the way we're going to do
Yeah,
it.
that's huge. We don't see red and blue. So, you know, we got Democrats, Republicans, and there's a lot of, you know, we're open. We're, you know, bipartisan support. We if you
That's
want
the
to
reason.
tackle the issue and you want to make it right, you know, for the right reasons, and you want to do the right thing for the people. I mean, quite honestly, I joke, I say we're not red or blue, we're red, white, and blue, because we're for the whole, we're for everyone, right? We're for
Yeah.
we the people. So you take that open mind, take that approach, you know, keep the conversation going. Don't be so hard set in your political views where you're limiting yourself on your resources. You have to be able to reach out. You know, we may not agree with everything that, you know, a Republican or Democrat says, you know, whether, you know, gun control is a big topic right now too, but regardless of where our personal political views are, do not let that sway you. You keep your cause and your goal and united in that the same, right? Your end game is our children. We want loving parents to have access to their children. So keep your focus on that, and don't limit yourself to your resources. I mean, be able to reach out.
Yeah, and don't take no for an answer. There's a will, there's a way.
Sure.
And so
I think you raised some really important fundamental points, especially, you know, just down to basic activism, because you know, I think the UK, we've got so much passion and talent when it comes to this area. There's even infighting, you know, which just, it kind of like you just think, well, all right, that's great that you're passionate, and you got these different groups and all the rest of it, and one doesn't like a certain little, just tiny little aspect of one group, and one doesn't like a tiny little aspect of another, and then that's it. You know, it's
we've done a really great
going
job this session. It's funny that you bring that up, because this session we've had more reaching across all the different advocacy groups, whether it was mothers for rights, fathers' rights, whether it, you know, there was I can't name them all, but I mean, we had so many different groups in support of all these different bills, and we were helping each other out. And it's like, hey, we're going to go testify for y'all stuff because we believe in it as well. And we bring our crew, and they bring their guys and men and women. And it was such a beautiful thing to see down in our state capitol in Austin, when everybody was testifying for these different bills and keeping the cause like-minded and the same. And it was only through that, I think, that we were successful as we were. Willing to put those small differences you talked about aside to kind of mend the fences and reach that common goal. And I think that's huge. That's real important.
And it's all, it all comes down to being able to compromise, especially in groups. You're not going to get 100%. He's not going to get 100%. Your group's not going to get 100% of what you want. Their group's not. So it's important that these groups, you know, work together and compromise and give and take, you know, and a lot of these groups, you know, a lot of infighting happened a few years ago because we're going to do it this way. And some of it still exists today. But what our group, we like to stay pretty much out of it. We're open to hear everything. But we come up with the decisions based on our group and where we want to go. Now, if we want to jump on your coattail and ride it, you know,
we'll support you.
We'll support you
if it's a like-minded cause,
right? And so we'll let you lead the way. We'll just support you from behind. Whatever you need, we're there. But we don't try to take over. And it's you know, we shouldn't want other groups to want to take over our group. And it's real simple. Just be open-minded. And I kind of got all of this from Google. I heard that Google, they encourage you to take a nap during your workday.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
because
Sign me up.
because
Sign me up.
people work better when they're refreshed, and so they encourage you to take your nap time. And I like naps, right? So I always tell my people, like, there's no set way to do something. Like, as long as you clear the objectives and we get the objectives done, I don't care what you do. You can sleep for 23 hours a day, you know?
Yeah, so you're part pit bull and you're part sort of like hound dog as well, like on the patio.
Yeah, you know, we got pet names for everybody. You know, we call him Daddy because he's more like the dad,
The father figure of the
so
group. Yeah.
you guys stop
fighting.
Stop
Yeah.
fighting and
So
chill
that-
out. You know,
Sorting kids out.
I'm the troublemaker, you know, and Claudia's the little sister that, you know, she's troublemaking with George. And what is George and Claudia doing? You know, and then we got Kimmy, who's more of the mom, you know. So we got all these pet names for each other, but we do it with such a great attitude because, you know, deep down we're hurting, right? We want to overcome this issue, and so now we're carrying the burden for a lot of our members.
Keep your sense of humor.
Right. So we try to have a healthy, good attitude about it to keep us going, and it works.
Stay positive.
Well, this has been a wonderful opportunity and experience for me personally to be able to speak to you fine people. I wonder if there's a sort of a final thought or a way to get back in contact, or, you know, a shout out to people, or, you know, a few sort of taglines on how people can get in touch, get involved, who you're targeting at the moment, you know, et cetera, that we can, you know, put at the forefront of this video.
The easiest way is to follow us on Facebook. We have 2 Facebook pages. We have a public page, Texas Interference with Child Custody 25.03. We have a group page that's more private, Interference with Child Custody Texas 2503. They're the same, but one's for the public and one's more private, more intimate setting for our members. Anybody can join. We try to, not that we limit membership, but we like to tell people that this is a Texas group. I know you need help in California. I know you need help in New York. I know you need help in the UK, but we're tackling Texas.
We did open up a national format too for everybody.
Yeah, we opened up a national deal, but
we're across every social media platform. We have a Twitter, we have an Instagram, we have a YouTube channel, we have the Facebook, which is most of our dealings is on Facebook,
and everything is Texas 2503.
Yeah, and we have
excellent. So if you guys send that to me, I will gladly put that in the description of this video, which will go out on YouTube and posted to my Facebook as well at P Maloney and on the Philip Maloney podcast, etc. Claudia, anything from you in this final moments?
No, just that I encourage parents to get really involved. That's what helped turn this around, was getting involvement, educating yourself on the laws, and honestly becoming a little bit more assertive with your rights. Because again, oftentimes parents kind of back away and they give up. But once you start reading through a lot of these laws and understanding them and reaching out to your legislators, you realize that these issues need to be resolved. And we've learned a lot. We've come a long way. And like George said, we're not going to stop. We've got to keep the momentum going, especially on these bills that are not being heard. And that way we can take care of a lot of these concerns. We have really good momentum. We have a really good team. We just shift our focus on something else, and we keep going.
Wow, wonderful. Well, I certainly hope to hear and feel the ripples from your splashing there in Texas through, you know, the ruckus that you're kicking up. I hope it you know, it creates the effect and it has the desired outcome for you all. And I hope that it, you know, really does sort of pave the way for, you know, for the rest of the United States, because I think that you know, whether you like it or not, the rest of the world sort of follows in those types of footsteps. So hopefully the noise that you're making now will echo over here to the UK and go in some way to help our plights globally. Really, you know, I think it's very important work that you're doing, and I'd like to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for your time today. So thank you, George. Thank you, Derick. Thank you, Claudia. And good luck with the rest of your mission.
Thank you as well. Thank you for the opportunity. It's because of shows like yourself and that give our platform a voice that we are so successful. So if it wasn't for you doing what you're doing right now with your show, we wouldn't be heard. So there's no doubt in my mind that the UK will hear us because of people like you. And we wish you all the best and success with your show as well. And thank you again for the opportunity for today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining in the Philip Maloney podcast.
On a train, in a bus, in a car, on the way to your job. All alone with your kids, with your wife, or with your dog. You can listen anywhere, you can listen everywhere, to the Philip Maloney podcast.